Hello and welcome to the Say It Sister podcast. I'm Lucy and
I'm Karen, and we're thrilled to have you here. Our paths crossed years ago on a shared journey of self-discovery, and what we found was an unshakable bond and a mutual desire to help others heal and live their very best lives.
For years we've had open, honest and courageous conversations, discussions that challenged us, lifted us and sometimes even brought us to tears. Now we want to share those conversations with you. We believe that by letting you into our world, you might find the courage to use your voice and say what really needs to be said in your own life.
Whether you're a woman seeking empowerment, a self-improvement enthusiast, or someone who craves thought-provoking dialogue, join us as we promise to bring you real, unfiltered conversations that encourage self-reflection and growth.
So join us as we explore, question and grow together. It's time to say it, sister.
Hey, it's Karen here, and I'm really happy to be talking about asking for help. We're going to get very practical today, and we're going to take you on a really nice journey. And hopefully by the end of it, you're going to come into full circle with yourself and be ready for your next request. How are you doing, Lucy?
Oh, just hearing you say that, just like, yeah, because I'm quite tired today. I don't know whether it's that autumn mood. It's raining outside. It's very grey. And actually, I just want to hibernate a little bit rather than going out and asking people for help. So it's going to be nice to just talk about it.
Of course. I think the work that we do is always incredibly healing, because when we go in there, we go in on a deep level and we start to talk about not just the issues, but what's really happening inside of us. And I feel like that is the great navigation place that to start with, actually, to say, ooh, when did I last ask for help? Who was the person and how did it go? When was the last time that you asked for help?
I think I have a few little low risk ask for help things that I do all the time. And actually, there was something within my family system where I was feeling put on all the time. And a couple of weeks ago, I said, come on, we're all old enough here. Why is it that I'm the one who's having to do all of the chores or the only one that's seeing the mess around? And so I said, I need some support. I can't keep doing it. And actually, it was really lovely. We had Sunday lunch yesterday and we cooked it. And then afterwards, without me even having to ask, everybody came into the kitchen and did their little bit. And we actually had the music on and it was fun. And I was so grateful. And I said, thank you. I didn't have to ask because we contracted earlier because I was almost at, burnout of having to do it all. So I was really grateful yesterday at reminding myself that when I ask, only good things happen.
Yeah, it's like that filling up moment, isn't it? Because it's also about receiving. I feel like when we talk about asking for help, it's we can get really caught up in that area of saying, this is not working for me and I need something and I would like you to support me in this way. And then we've got to say, right, now I'll let you do it, So it's one thing is asking, another thing is receiving. And I just go back to my corporate, when I was in my corporate job, when I was really young in my mid-20s, I was very good at saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I've got all this stuff running at the moment, like multiple things, because I'm good at doing a lot of things at the same time. But when I look back, I realized how bad I was at actually receiving help, because I'd just then go back into the old behavior and just do it all myself, And as I've got older, life kind of teaches you some tricks, doesn't it? I've realized that I'm pretty good at it these days, and actually I will receive, because I just realized that otherwise life is really lonely.
Yeah, it is a strange thing when you start learning to receive, because I was going through all of these. It's kind of like a push-pull energy for me, as in I would ask for help and then I'd receive it. And then the next time we were doing something, somebody would offer the help. I'd be like, I've got this. And then I'd be like, oh no, remember the lesson, Lucy. And so when you start receiving, you have to allow it to come, because otherwise the person who's trying to offer feels rejection and they stop offering after a while. So it is kind of just this energy flow that, if you ask for help, you need to receive it. And yeah, that gratitude piece it kind of like completes the circle, doesn't it?
For sure. And there's something coming up for me around this idea of, if you want something doing, give it to a busy person. But those people are generally also, drowning in things, but they're just really great. It's the swan. They're really great at showing how capable they are, how brilliant they are, how much they can, many hands, a mother with many hands also working. and it's kind of this persona that, is the outward, how we present ourselves, but underneath we can be like, why is nobody helping me? What's going on with me? I feel like I'm going to drop something really important. And the fear that sits in the system that drives us into continuing to do it is the bit that we want to look at today and actually say, oh, actually, where could somebody support me? Where do I most need help? Who could provide? And how would that feel to actually really, really, not be the lone wolf? We've talked about this before, but to actually move forward in a different way. And I don't think we can address asking for help without looking at the root cause of, what stops us from asking for help? What happened in our lives that almost like told us that we had to do it all ourselves.
And interestingly, I've always been very neighbourly. And wherever I've lived, I've always got to know my neighbours and build that mini community around me. And I've got some wonderful neighbours. Now we actually moved in on exactly the same day, which was bizarre. And over the years, we've built this lovely relationship. And a few weeks ago, she knocked on my door and said, "Oh, I've got a really big favour to ask." I'm like, "Okay, ask." And it was actually just, could I look after the dog for the day? And I was like, "You don't have to." And she was like, "I'm so grateful. I hate having to ask." I said, "But we're friends. We're not neighbors anymore. We've done enough of this now. We are just friends." And it was just almost like this huge sigh of relief, that I'd almost named it, that it's not transactional. It's not like you do something for me and I do something for you. So you just reminded me of that as you were sharing.
Yeah.
And it comes with trust, and it comes with love, and all of that stuff. Whenever I'm offering help, it's always done from a good place.
Yeah, when did it go wrong for you? Where did, I mean, you don't have to share, you can share anything. We don't have to go right into the big, it might be a small thing,
Yeah.
but
Well, do you know what? I think there was a lot of stuff for me around when my parents split up, and I was about 4.5 years old, which was the first times that I started to realize I was almost on my own, because they had so much adult stuff going on that it was easier for me to learn to be the capable. I'm not going to cause any trouble. I'm not going to have any hissy fits or anything like that, or ask for what I needed, because I could see, even at that young age, I could see that they had other stuff going on.
mm,
So interestingly, I did some secret self work, and the secret self person that I met was the little girl around that time, and she was still locked in the cellar, and she was on her own in the dark, and she could hear all of the stuff going on outside, but she's like, "I'm safe here. I'll come out when everything's settled." And of course, life is never really settled. And so that was really illuminating for me to go back to those very first stages. But then equally, as I remember, I was having a really hard time at school. I think I was probably about 11, and there was a bit of low-level bullying, and it was quite nasty. And I said to my mum, "I want to change schools. I can't do this anymore." And she was like, "Well, don't be ridiculous. There aren't any other schools in the neighbourhood," and just brushed it off and told me I was, well, stupid, rather than listening to me and saying, "I hear you." Um, and so I think there were lots of little moments all growing up where I almost made a bid for help,
yeah,
and it just didn't
and
come. So I
nothing
just
changed.
learned to stop
Yeah.
bidding. Yeah.
I think it's that thing, isn't it? When things don't change, when you speak up and then there's no shift or change, you feel like, well, what was the point in that? And it's almost like more painful in a way than just actually managing it and doing it yourself. It's similar because we have similar stories in that way. You know, both my parents worked full time, and they would say, we need you to be good because we work full time. And so I took that on board, on a deep level, was like, well, that means I need to be able to care for myself, and um, times were different back then. We were left, I think, to our own devices much more when we were younger. But yeah, I certainly did that. I would go make my own food and, do different things when they were working, and didn't really think much of it. But I also spent a lot of time alone and on my own. And so I built this sort of, well, quite capable approach to life that, well, I just do it. If I want it, I'll go do it. If I want something, I'll make it happen. And it was very much me on my own, and I've learned the flaws of that over time, but actually in the beginning that was how it was. And also similar to you, I was bullied at school and I was terrified for 3 years. And I realized that I was on my own in it because it continued to happen, even though it was reported. There was a change in the beginning and then things kind of slid back. And I just thought, no one's going to do this for me. I'm going to have to do it myself. And so these things get hardwired in when we're very young, don't they? And then you have to sort of spend your midlife almost like repatterning yourself and saying, yeah, that worked. It was a brilliant, brilliant response. And you are amazing for being so robust. However, it's not needed anymore. And it's certainly not how I build my life now. And yeah, I think when we have vulnerable times as we're older, we're like, I'm not doing it like that anymore. I need support.
It's interesting because I wrote a book, Leader X, came out 2020, and it was about generational differences. And some of the things that really classify our generation, the 40 pluses, are that we are really resilient and we're autonomous and we take personal responsibility. So, all of these amazing qualities that I think because we didn't have people taking care of our emotional needs
Yeah.
in the same way that we get, with the children today, we almost overcompensate, and children now are coming through who are less resilient. And so it's about finding that, yes, you can be tough, but you can also be soft. Yes, you can look after yourself, but sometimes it's nice to have people look after you. And I think the work that, especially in your 40s, maybe it starts in your 30s, is that unconditioning. It's like, I'm exhausted by having to carry it all.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, I saw it as my superpower. And, it was also that it was those exact qualities that helped me ride up the career ladder because I was capable. I just got on with things. If there was a problem, I didn't need anybody else's help, or I built my teams to solve it. And they're the things that employers want. They want people who are strong and resilient and keep going in the face of adversity. But actually, there was nobody supporting me. And
Sure.
I do remember when I was probably about 34, 35, and I had an amazing leader who, and he was at the end of his career. He was just doing it as an interim job for retirement. And I actually went to him and I said, I went to a meeting and nobody listened to me. And I was there to, present something on my subject matter, and nobody listened to me, or they were like scoffing it. And I was the only woman in the room, but I was also significantly younger. And I went and told him because he asked for a debrief, and he put his like sort of like put his hand down, and he was like, right, nobody treats my members of staff like that. He said, I've got you, Lucy. And I didn't ask for help, but when he provided it to me, I was like, I didn't know I needed that. And
Oh,
so it's also knowing that some of these skills are really invaluable, but equally, my God, it weighs it down. And if you can be the person to support or offer support to that person in their early careers or even in their later careers, it
yeah.
doesn't matter. Sometimes you've got to be the one to offer that branch to them because they're not going to bid, or if they're anything like me, they're not going to ask for help easily.
I feel like the structures in many, many spaces as well are starting to change, even in the corporate world, from the hierarchical, like top all the way down, it's becoming much more flat based. And so, people are having to work almost like as individuals, even though they might have more experience on the same level, and they're stepping into roles like coaching to actually support and facilitate and collaborate. And it's becoming much more organic, much more rather than this is my team, this is here we are together. It's like the communal we is becoming more powerful. And so, the way that we operate, the way that we work, this can do attitude, it's almost like shared out in a more I would say feminine way where everyone is kind of working together to create something that feels dynamic when everyone's got a shared responsibility as opposed to that. And I don't know how it's all going to unfold fully yet with some of the companies that I work with because it's all very new. You have got people who are taking more responsibility, but it definitely feels like it's being cascaded down and round, so it becomes a collective. And I feel like that's a positive move in so many levels because it's this, like, I would always have at the top of my CV can do attitude. And now it just makes me cringe because I'm like, it's the fact that I had to say it out loud and actually put it right there at the top. And that is definitely who I am. I love to create. I'm purposeful all the time. I have to spend time being unpurposeful for me to rebalance, so I'm kind of on that high spectrum. And at the same time, I'd like a can be attitude. It's like, you know what I mean? We're so programmed
Yes.
into like, it's like can be. Can you imagine putting that on the top of your CV? People will be like, what are you talking about? But, it's that element of like us as coactive coaches where we go, let's get into our being place, let's get into our bodies, let's get present. And then we wrap around, the doing around that rather than here I am doing my do. Who am I? Oh, I've no idea because I'm so busy, and you're laughing, I know you are. But it is just right, literally the opposite way around. And of course, we need to be able to be and do, because otherwise we'd be meditating 24/7. And, there's a place for that, but unless you're on a silent retreat, but actually out in the real world, we have to be able to do. So it's almost like, I think having these conversations to reconnect in and say, what taboos am I holding about asking for help? What is really of service to me? What do I need? What am I believing about myself? And who can I have conversations with? Because I've got quite good at sort of not being too, not too demanding, that's not the right word, but like my expectations have changed. So as a person, I'm a considerate helper. That's one of my sort of like roles that I play. And I spent my whole life doing that, and I can't help it. I love to help. And at the same time, I've had to sort of think, if I ask for help, don't expect people to return it. I'm trying to put this in a simple way, but like I know that if I ask 4 people to help me, I might get help from 2 people, and 2 people might not be able to do that. And that's totally fine with me. As long as, I've got a little sort of tribe of people that I go, well, that person would be great for that. Like, for example, I've got a video shoot next week. So I've called on the help of my friend who's a celebrity stylist who's helped me with my looks. So that's taken care of. My husband's going to help me with some things. And I'm doing a day of rehearsing with a really good friend who's also brilliant at public speaking. So I know who those people are, and I'll go in and say, look, I need 2 hours from you, or can you just da da da? And I make it as easy as possible for them because they're busy and they're working. But I'm quite clear about it, And if someone's like, I can't do it because I'm really busy, I'm like, no problem, So it's like, I don't take it as a personal, like, you didn't help me. It's more, I just feel much more easy with it. And I can sort of be like, okay, no problem. I'll go find somebody else because I know I need help.
And ultimately, if the help doesn't come, that you also have that inner resilience to know that you can do it. It's just going to be a lot harder to
Sure.
have to do it on your own. And so I think that's like that piece where, you don't need somebody to save you, but my God, if somebody who's got the skills can help me or just give a bit of their time, it's going to make the journey a hell of a lot easier. And interestingly, you were talking about our coach training way back when. And one of the exercises was that what can't you be with? And I think we had to have a sticker on there. And my word said burden. I would hate to be a burden to anybody. And I also hate people who are, I don't want to use the word needy, but the people who just take all the time
Yeah.
and just expect they're just energy zappers. And so that was the thing that I just couldn't be with. And I've really spent a lot of time really understanding that. And it was because I would never want to be a burden on anybody.
Mm.
And they were the things that were stopping me from ever asking for help. Um, but actually, it was making me incredibly lonely because I've since learned that relationship is all built on this giving and receiving and this asking for help and receiving help. That's just how communities are built. That's how humans developed in our little villages, in our caves, whatever. This is just like within our DNA that we need to be able to get good at this give and take. And then it really came into my full mind when I was doing my mental health first aid training. And it was that if somebody is really in crisis, all you've got to do is just go and sit next to them and say, "Hey, how you
Mm.
doing?" Or "Are you okay?" Or "Can I sit with you?" And that thing about me intruding because I don't want to be a burden, I don't want to interfere. Actually, it can save somebody's life. So it took it from that extreme of me being really isolating of myself to actually realizing these give and take skills that we have actually save lives. So now I will go and I will just offer an ear, a shoulder to cry on, just to sit next to somebody. But if they really do need something big, I'll do what I can. And if I'm not the right person, I will then signpost to them to the right way. But I will still check in. Hey, did you get that thing sorted? Is there anything else that you need?
Yeah.
But again, if they say no, I'm fine, I'm like, good, I'm glad. I
Yeah.
trust your resilience. You're doing the right things. So it's a huge journey for all of us. And I don't, I wonder where we got disconnected from this give and take, because it wasn't always that way. But people were always doing it. And I do wonder whether some of it is part of this whole thing when we started getting money. Because before you would barter, I'm good at cooking and you're good at
Mm.
milling the flour. Why don't we trade? And it did feel a lot more community transaction based. And as soon as we started getting money, it's almost like we just stopped asking,
Yeah.
because it did feel like, well, I do something for you, you need to give me this in return.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's
a
so
favor thing,
sad.
isn't it? It's like we were saying earlier, and I was, it's the way it's phrased as well when you're growing up, I think, because in our house it was like, oh, can you do me a favor? It was almost like, and it felt heavy to me.
Mm,
It's like, I'll do this for you and you'll do this for me. And but sometimes you can't actually, you're not the right person to give something, and maybe you've not got the right energy at that point. So there's so much more that goes into it, I think, in terms of, number one, understanding what you need, your own personal needs are. And that includes when someone asks you for help, is it available? Because if it's not available, you're giving from empty. That's actually a really dangerous thing. And that's when we lead into these areas of burnout, because we just can't say no. So it's kind of a loaded space, as most of the conversations are that we have. It's not a very straightforward thing. And I think we're constantly having to sort of renegotiate inside ourselves and go, what do I need? Who can give it to me? What if I don't get any support on that? What does that, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that you're not loved. Like, there's something almost like deeper that we have to do within ourselves to actually get clearer on things. But also, if someone's asking for help and we can't give it, to be able to say, I wish I could help you, and I'm so sorry right now, that's not where I just, I don't have the energy, or whatever it might be. However, have you thought about, so you never leave someone hanging.
still,
I would
you're
never
still
leave them hanging.
helping.
Yes. And there's many ways that you can direct people and help people. It doesn't have to be like, the full, you don't necessarily have to give the full thing. You may be able to give, 5% or 5 minutes, whatever it might be, and that can be enough as well. So it's like, it's, I think for me, if it's something that's a complicated request, I know I'll need to do more work on myself to get into the energy for it. So, you know, I'll prepare for a conversation and asking for help. I wouldn't just go in and I just don't work like that anymore. So if it's something that feels like it's a bit of a trigger for me, or I'm feeling vulnerable, then I will prepare myself for that journey, and I will get into my power, and I'll ask from a empowered place as opposed to a desperate place. That's important for me. But there are times in life when I've asked for help and I have been desperate, and I have needed help for sure. So it's not cut and dried, is what I'm trying to say. And I think when we understand where we are and how our needs are sort of placed inside of us, then we can build it in a different way. Yeah, I don't know what's coming up for you on that.
Yeah, what was coming up for me is really interesting, because there's something about the gravity of what you're requesting. And so the first thing, I guess, starts with being really clear on what is it you actually do need. Because especially when you're in, whether it's emotional, mental, physical overload, sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. So it's really difficult. You just know you need some help. And
Mm.
sometimes that is all you need to say, I need help. And talking to somebody, whoever it is, a friend, a best friend, a coach, a therapist, will just saying the words out loud is enough to then start unpicking it. But if you're not at those extreme levels yet, sometimes you do know what it is specifically you need. And you might need an early night. You might need somebody to take this thing away from you temporarily, or pick up a piece of work, or show you how to do this in a more efficient way. So you can be really specific about asking. But equally, it's once you start being specific about what is it that I need, you're then much more likely to find the person who can give you what you need.
Mm.
And so again, if you just like, I need help, you might direct that request to the wrong person,
Yeah.
because they might literally not be able to take the whole of it. And then it causes a bit of like an ill feeling between both parties, because you're both feeling a bit, oh, I want to help, but I can't. So I think that's the first thing that comes into my mind. Be specific about what help do you actually need. Then you can work out who is it that can go there. And also, I think there's something there about once you're really clear on that, you can understand, is this too much of a favor or too much of a burden or whatever the word is? Because if it doesn't feel fair and equitable, somebody might feel then indebted, and we don't want this feeling of indebted. So when you break it down, it is quite complex, but actually it does, all it takes is for you to have 5, 10 minutes just to sit down and go through those steps.
And get clear within yourself, because it's the survival piece, isn't there? There's a survival bit and then there's a thriving bit, and we're all programmed to survive, so we all generally work in the place of survival, but then to tip it into something that's more about thriving, and it might be about growth, it might be about the next step in your career, or you know getting that promotion, getting that pay rise that that you deserve. And that's not necessarily asking for help, but it sits in the space of like going in and asking for what you need. So I suppose there's different levels of it, isn't there? Is what we're all saying, is like, yeah, if obviously we all want to be thriving, we all want to be in that place, but I think when we're in survival mode, asking for help is going to feel different, as opposed to something that feels much more in alignment with our dreams or our hopes or our vision, which is tipping it into a higher state. And whatever I'm doing, for me, it's about coming back into the present moment within my power now. So in terms of practicalities, the way I tend to work with things is I'll just clear my space around me. I'll get in tune with myself on the inside. I'll say things like, I ask for any negative energies or anything that's not in alignment with my highest and best good to leave now. You're not welcome here and permission is denied. And then I come back into my breath, back into that present moment, and I'll say, I am powerful now. I am here now. I am, my highest self now. And then I can step into that thriving state, that energetic feeling that you have on the inside of going, I can do this. And I'm going to go ask, I'm going to go and get my people around me. I'm going to go and take these different steps. And they might still be a little bit nervous because people can always say no. Yet there's something inside that's sort of saying no, but go for it, give it a go, give it a try. And it's not always about getting the yes answer. It's about having the experience and taking the journey, and keep believing in yourself that you are worthy of more, in a way, and taking those next steps. So yeah, that for me is like the highest expression and state of it, rather than coming from a lacking, fearful place.
I must say, having a few of those little rituals really does support me. And I think a lot of people have rituals that they do. They just don't realize that they're rituals. And so before we chatted today to record this, I said, oh, I've just been in something. My head's really busy with something else. Can I just have 15 minutes before we come on? Just because I needed to be in the right space to be able to have this conversation. And so I asked, can I have 15 minutes? And of course you said yes, because you got it. Other things I do, I always light a candle. I've got lots of little routines or rituals that I do before I've got a big meeting, or I'm going into the zone of things that I do. And there's certain music I like to listen to. There's I wear certain clothes. Sometimes I'll wear certain jewelry because it just grounds me into that feeling of, oh, I've got this. I am powerful. Now let me ask for what I need or make these requests. So yeah, this thing for me about asking for help, actually, it does need a little priming. It does need a little bit of work. And interestingly, during COVID, I was doing these online workshops for some young people in their early careers. And the topic was around assertiveness. And I had to actually just name what assertiveness is. And it is asking for what you want, what you need, and expressing how you feel, whilst also taking into consideration the wants, needs, and feelings of others. And it's that equity. And what I was finding was that people would either be overly asking and expressing without thinking about the other person, or they just wouldn't do it at all. And it was just saying, no, it's just about having this balance. As long as what you're asking for is done with the good intentions, just do it. Just go. Just
Well,
be
it's
playful with it.
full permission versus responsibility for impact, which is like the whole like leadership model for CTI. When you start to break it down, I think most of us probably, you take one or the other, like, the full permission is harsh. It's been really hard for me. Responsibility for impact, no problem. I'll take responsibility for my impact, your impact, everybody else's impact. But giving myself full permission to go forth has been something I've had to learn, and cultivate and grow. And I'm more in that place now, so I can sort of go between the two much more easily. But yeah, I think we all have a natural preference, don't we, where we would like to sit. But to be full rounded, to be wholehearted, to be, to be yin and yang, we've got to kind of learn both sides of things and then sort of judge it, like what's needed now. What do I need? What's the space need? What do we need now? And then you sort of like blend it together somehow. And that sounds like a perfect thing, because it never is perfect. But like, I think it's wherever we are strong, let's play in the other areas as well, so that we become more rounded. And I think for me, the essence of asking for help and receiving help, it's something that it's like a practice, and the more we practice it, it becomes a practice, something that we can do more easily, and also to actually feel the benefit of receiving and going, that person really showed up for me. I was clear about what I needed, or I was not clear, and yet look what happened. It doesn't have to be like I have to have all my needs, like I need to know it all, I need to feel powerful, because that is sometimes true, but sometimes it isn't. But it's the impact and what gets created from there that is the beauty of asking and receiving help for me.
And do you know what? The one area which I've always been strong on, and again, it's probably that inner child learnt to ask for help, but not from another human, but sometimes I would just put it out there into the universe. And for some, it might be a prayer, it might be a mantra, it might be a spell, whatever your thing is. But every time you put it into the universe that I need help, or, I'm ready to receive, do you know what? It usually arrives. So however you practice, even if it is just practicing on your own and putting it out there into the world and then building your way up, you tend to find that you do receive, once you're aware and you look back and you track it back, you've probably had these gifts of help and you've received them all throughout your life. You may just not have really been aware of them. So I'm going to wrap it up now and just ask you, Karen, just to name the one bit of advice or the thing that you really want people to know about asking for help.
Yeah, I would say go and make your requests in the mirror to yourself first. Look into your eyes, see yourself fully. Don't look at what's going on with your face, but just look into your eyes and just say, ask for what you need to yourself and feel the energy of that. And Marianne Williamson always says, the prayer that she puts out is, I need a miracle and I need it quick. And I love that because it's so simple and so, easy to remember. And so you kind of checking in with you doing that thing, and then you can put your prayer out or your intention, whatever you want to call it, your mantra, and know that someone will show up. So I love what you just said, because I was like, yes. What about you?
The one thing I want people to remember more than anything is, in my experience and the universal experience, people actually really like to help. So don't be afraid to ask, because sometimes even if they can't give it, the fact that you've asked them actually makes them feel really good. Just like, they think I can help them, or I've got the skills or the energy, whatever. So just remember that most people are really quite touched when you ask them for help. So with that, I'm going to just say thank you for listening. For those of you who have liked and subscribed and followed and done all, pushed all those buttons, we thank you sincerely. It really does help us. And if you want to carry on the conversation, remember we do have our private Facebook group where we will welcome you. So until next time, bye-bye. So thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you next time.
Until then, use your voice, journal, speak or sing out loud. However you do it, we hope you join us in
Saying It Sister.